Perfect.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Friday's webinar from Annika Digital. It's myself, Anne Stanley, and I've got Holly Kelly today. Morning, Holly.
Morning.
So you're going to be talking on the importance of brand awareness and its importance. So that's really a really interesting campaign, which we do a lot more of nowadays. So I'll do a little bit of the housekeeping. So what we do now is we're going to do a poll while we're waiting for a few more people to arrive, and then I'm going to hand over to Holly. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat. Now, you can also download the slides. So I'm just going to share them now. So you should be able to go and get the slides from the handout section, top right. And we will release the video in a couple of hours once it's been processed. It does take a little while to process. And then finally, we've got a few offers at the end for the early bird tickets and also the training course and things. So I just so please stay around to the end so we can give you the early bird tickets as well. So should we start with the polls then, Holly?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's do the first one. So it should appear on your screen. Is it there? Can you see it?
So not yet. Yeah, it's come up.
Okay, so do you consider brand awareness as a priority? Yes, we consider it a priority. Yes, but we do not have sufficient budget. I'm unsure of the value. No, we do not consider it a priority. So if you could hit that one, and we're starting to get a few people hitting the button now, then that will give us an idea of how important you think brand awareness campaigns are, and what you could, whether you can afford to do them at the moment. So now it's a really interesting split. It's about a third consider it as a priority, but about 50% say they haven't got the budgets to do it, which is really interesting. So I think you're going to show some quite low cost options today for doing brand awareness, particularly with video, for example. So hopefully, as we go through, we can think about the budgets. So it's sort of swapped around a little bit now. So we've got about 45% consider it a priority, and about 33% haven't got the budgets. There's still about 20% who are not quite sure about it. So there's obviously a few people in the room that are a little bit worried about the budget. So let's just go to the next poll. So the next one is, are you currently running any brand awareness campaigns? So yes, we are currently running campaigns. No, but we have run some in the past. No, we're not running any or haven't in the past. No, but we are looking to run some. So it's just to sort of get an idea really of, who's been doing what, and if you've actually invested any money in these brand campaigns. So quite a few people are answering now. Oh, it's a pretty even split, this one. I think it's probably one of the most even splits I've seen. So at the moment, we've got about 30% are running campaigns currently. About 40% have run them in the past, and the rest is a sort of split between they've not run any, or are planning to run. So about 20% are planning to run some. So excellent. So I'm going to disappear and leave it over to you. So I'll see you around 5 to 10, or when you get towards your last few slides. So see you later, everybody. Bye.
Perfect. So morning, everybody. So the presentation today is going to be all about the importance of brand awareness, particularly through using paid media, and how you can measure its impact, because essentially, if you're going to run brand awareness campaigns, you need to know the value that they're bringing to your business. A little bit about myself. So I've been with Annika for 7.5 years now, and I'm a senior paid strategist. I previously headed up the paid media team before we kind of split into multi-channel teams, and now I lead one of those teams, multi-channel teams now as well. My background is in paid search, but I do cross over into the paid social as well, so experienced across kind of paid media as a whole. And in terms of Annika, we're celebrating our 15th birthday this year, and established Annika back in 2007. 28 team members. I think that's gone up a little bit now as well. And we're all about kind of supporting digital ambitions as well. As part of our 15th birthday, we're kind of on a little bit of a mission. We've got our Leicester Digital Live conference coming up in June, and we're looking to support kind of four different sectors around construction, STEM, local businesses and e-commerce businesses, particularly within the UK. So over to kind of today's webinar. So we're going to look at, like I say, the importance of brand awareness, techniques you can use across search, display, video and social, and they're looking at driving awareness, driving video views, whether you're looking for something kind of more measurable in terms of kind of encouraging engagement, and then also producing kind of awareness-led content, so what you can promote through these campaigns as well. And then we're going to look at how you can measure your impact of these campaigns, and there's some various different ways in which you can do that, and you can do kind of multiple ways at the same time. So first and foremost, brand awareness sits within obviously the conversion and sales funnel, and it sits at the very top. So awareness activity is all around kind of reaching the biggest audience, but what you want to make sure you're doing is reaching a relevant audience at the same time. So unless you're, FMCG goods, then actually really you've still got a target audience in which you want to target. And that's why paid media can be really great, because whilst you can still go out to a really big audience and reach a large share of that target market, you are still targeted in who you're reaching. So the awareness that you're driving is driving amongst a relevant audience. And then from awareness, what we try to do is we try to filter that down into consideration, and then we try to filter that down into conversion. So whilst we're running brand awareness and, you're not necessarily going to expect to see direct conversions, direct sales, direct leads, and direct actions from that campaign, what we do is through our kind of measurement tactics, we build these campaigns back into the funnel, and we bring these users through the journey with us, and we move them into consideration, and then we move them into conversion. So it is at the very top, it is broad, it is large reach, but it is with the view that you're building for future customers. So it is a really important step in the customer journey. And like I say, it is the first stepping stone. So it should really be the foundation of all marketing activity. If you've got a brand new company set up without brand awareness, it's going to be a struggle to kind of help to kind of grow that business. So it's really critical for increasing recognition of a brand. And it's the start of the process of driving those performance related objectives. Like I say, with our kind of measurement techniques, what we do is we take users through the funnel. So whilst that initial step of kind of driving awareness isn't focused on conversions, in the back of our minds and in the back of your minds, it should be, how do I get that user from the point of awareness to a point of conversion? So it's always there. It's always in the thought process. That's the end and ultimate goal. But to get to that stage, you've got to go through the awareness stage first. And of course, without any brand awareness activity, it becomes a lot harder to prospect. So if you want to increase your brand share in the market, somehow you're going to have to increase your branding. And obviously brand awareness is the predominant and main way in which you can do that. A few factors of brand awareness. So these are just kind of three, but three of the main ones. So brand awareness helps to foster trust. So without brand awareness, like I say, if you're a new brand, there's no kind of recognition and there's no trust within that brand. So by building a presence and by building, going on to this kind of second element, a personality, brand awareness can help to kind of bridge the gap to develop loyal customers and increase the confidence in a brand. And by building a personality, it just gives a little bit of a face to your brand. So people essentially want to buy from people. That's what helps build and foster relationships. So that's where kind of your personality and putting your message out there, whether that's your ethics, whether it's your brand values, whether it's your brand tone of voice, whether it's fun, whether it's corporate, it's about getting kind of that personality out there and building that relationship with potential customers. And then also association. So over time, people start to associate brands with specific products. So, you know, really famous ones are things like Hoover. Hoover is the brand, but actually, if anybody, 50 to 90% of people are going to be saying, you know, I'm just going to put the Hoover around. Well, it's not a Hoover. They might have a Dyson or they might have a Shark. But that brand association has kind of come over time, and it's the same for Coca-Cola as well. Obviously, they're on kind of very big scales, but there's things like, you know, just colours and music that if you've got them kind of with an ad, over time you start to associate. So it's building that association with your brand and your brand messaging. So ultimately, brand awareness is pretty critical for the long-term success and growth of a brand. If you want to grow your brand, you need to kind of expand out into a new audience. And the only way really you're going to do that is through brand awareness activity. And it also allows you to reduce barriers in the conversion path, because once you begin embedding yourself in your brand and consumer lifestyles and habits, then essentially whether they need you at that moment or they need your product or service in 2 months or 3 months time, if you've been embedding your brand and your messaging during that period, it becomes an easier choice. And when they get to the point of I need this product, I need this service, then your brand becomes front and center, and it's a lot easier for you to then take that customer on to a point of conversion. One of the things when it comes to brand awareness, in the past, we've previously relied heavily on kind of third-party data. So, you know, through the likes of Google and Facebook, so interest-based targeting and things like that. One thing to kind of keep in mind as kind of you're growing and you're thinking about brand awareness is how you can build your first-party data as well. Because first-party data, it gets you insights only you have about your customers. So whether you're using that data to help you prospect, so whether you're picking out, you know, key demographic traits, key interests, key behavioural traits, that can help you to kind of build with the third-party data whilst we have it at the moment. But it also means that in some of the platforms, there's audiences called lookalike and similar audiences, and these are built off of your first-party data. So they're looking for customers, prospects that are like your existing customers. So your first-party data does become kind of really important, and it can also help you to measure and enhance your performance. So even whilst using the platform data around kind of interests and behaviours, once you get past that stage, one of the measurement tactics that we kind of implement is around using what now becomes your first party data through remarketing activities. So first party data is really important, but there's changes to cookies that is just kind of important to be aware of whilst you're building, because the more first party data that you can collect, the better kind of position that you are going to be in. So that's kind of the background why kind of brand awareness is important. So it's all about building trust. It's all about creating a brand personality, creating association, and just embedding your brand really ready for the point at which users are going to convert. So now we're going to look at how you can make your brand more visible. And by no means is this kind of a full and extensive list of all the possible ways in which you could do that. But it is going through some of the tactics that we deploy here at Anika as well, and some that are transferable to to your brand and business. And like Anne says, when we was putting the polls out, a lot of these techniques are really low cost. So some of them, you know, you could invest a couple of £100 and still see some really great results and still see some really great reach achieved through that. And then with the measurement tactics, you're able to kind of establish, you know, what did that get me, and how can I kind of expand that kind of moving forward as well. So when it comes to brand awareness, as with kind of any campaign that you're going to run, you need to do a little bit of planning. So what you want to understand is, what are you going to measure? Are you going to be measuring views? Is it impressions? Do you want to focus on engagement? Typically, brand awareness is all about kind of the reach. So views and impressions are typically the main measurement points. However, you might want to focus on more kind of action-led brand awareness. So you might want to focus on, okay, I'm driving brand awareness, but I want the user to show some sort of engagement and some sort of interaction, because that's how I'm going to measure the success. So instead of kind of views and reach and impression metrics, you might start to look at how many people are engaging with your ad, how many people are clicking through to your website. So establishing what you want to measure and what you want your brand awareness to look like is the first step. And then the second step is going to be, how will you measure this? So will it be around how many people are conducting brand searches? And that's a great way to establish how your brand is growing over time. Obviously, depending on the business, you need to account for kind of seasonality, peaks and troughs anyway. But it's a great way to see if there's an increase in the number of searches coming through on brand versus generic searches, so the percentage of searches that are brand. Then you can start to see, okay, the brand awareness activity is paying off. Or will it be that the brand awareness activity will push through and power your remarketing activity, so retargeting to people who have previously interacted with your brand in one way or another. And then that leads us on to the who and the where. So the other side of this is, you know, who are you going to target and how are you going to target them? So will it be through their interests? Will it be through keywords on the search network? Or will it be, you know, you're going to use your first party data to prospect out to new customers that share similar traits, similar behaviors and characteristics as your existing ones? There's many different ways you can target, and we're going to go through a few of them on each of the different channels later in the presentation as well. And then thinking about where you're going to target, and where you're going to target really comes down to who you're going to target and the types of either websites or apps or platforms that these users are on their phones or their laptop devices. So, you know, if you're going for kind of a very young audience, whether it's that 17 to 24-year-olds, you know, is TikTok going to be the best platform for you to kind of build awareness amongst? If you're going for kind of 50 plus, is Facebook going to be a good platform for you? So there's many different platforms, and it's about understanding where your target audience is hanging around on the web. So whether it's Facebook, whether it's YouTube, whether it's specific websites or around kind of news sites or content-led sites, there's so many different places, and there's millions and millions of people to reach. And then when it comes to using paid media for brand awareness, like I say, you can use paid search, you can use display, you can use social media. So that's covering kind of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It could even be kind of Pinterest. And on obviously a business side of things, it could be LinkedIn as well. So there's a ton of different platforms. There's also things like Reddit and Quora, which you can run paid advertising through as well. So there's many different channels in which you can reach and start to kind of build awareness. And like I say, it goes back to, you know, where are your prospective customers hanging out on the web? Paid media, it helps you to reach relevant targeted prospects. So like I say, you know, with potentially traditional media or other kind of approaches, it's not necessarily targeted in a very defined way, whereas paid media helps you to kind of narrow down on specific sets of users. So whether, like I say, it's interest, whether it's behavioral, whether it's demographic based, and we're going to look into some of these a little bit later, but you can really dig down into who your perfect customer is and how to kind of reach those effectively. It helps you to embed your brand through ad diversification. So with paid media, you can test, and you can test a lot, and you can help start to understand which kind of messaging and which ads relate best to your prospects, and also you can diversify. So with different tools, so some of them are free, so things like the Facebook ads library, you're able to see, what your competitors' ads are running, and what messaging and what tone and what content are they promoting, and then you can take that and look at how you can diversify from that and make your ad and your brand stand out. And that helps you as well to showcase what your brand is all about. So this is where kind of the brand personality comes out. So putting forward your values, your ethics, what your mission is as a brand, and telling a story. So people like to get engaged with a brand if they've got a good story to tell as well. And most of all, it puts your logo and your brand front and center. So paid media ads have a reach like kind of no other kind of digital channel really. So previously, organic posts on social media, they got quite a big reach, but in comparison over the years, the way kind of the algorithms are working and how Facebook and the other platforms display these posts now, the reach on organic is becoming smaller and smaller. So paid media is a really great means in which to get your logo and brand name front and center. So within each platform, whether it's Facebook, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Google Ads, each of these platforms presents you with auto-optimized campaign solutions, and they each have a solution with an objective of driving brand awareness. Whether you select the brand awareness campaign specifically, and I'll show you an example in Facebook later, is dependent on what you want to track. So if, as we say, you want to track kind of reach and you want to track views and impressions, then a brand awareness campaign is going to be perfect. But if you want to track the engagement and you want to get people to your website, then actually you're going to be looking at things like engagement and traffic campaigns, which still hold a great deal of reach. They still hold a great deal of kind of impressions and views, but it just means that the focus and the objective of the campaign shifts a little bit, but in your eyes, you're still driving brand awareness. If you're completely new and you haven't done any brand awareness activity before, these auto-optimized campaign solutions are a really great place to start, because they help you to essentially tweak the campaign to who's going to see it based on these goals that are set. So if you want to go after reach, what Facebook would do or what YouTube would do is deliver the campaign to as many people as possible. If you wanted to go after engagement, what the platforms would do is deliver the ads to the users that they see as the most likely to engage with your ad. So it just helps with a little bit of auto optimization, particularly if you haven't run anything before. And also it just gives you a means to establish how you're going to track and what you're going to track as well. So when you set your goals, there's a number of KPIs that you can set and track, and they all ultimately hold different values, and it depends what you want to get out of the campaign. So in some instances, like I say, you might want to track kind of the reach volt metrics. So these are going to be your impressions and your video views. So you might have a target of how many people you want to reach, how many people you want to see your ad, and these are going to be kind of the metrics that you use. On the flip side of that, we can go after kind of engagement. So that can be things like social page likes. So are your follower counts increasing? It could be kind of comments and shares of your post. Or it could be on video. You could be looking at the video view rate rather than the video views itself. And then on the other side of that, it could be cost-based metrics. So you might want to attract brand awareness, but at a certain cost. So you might be tracking cost per click, you might be tracking cost per 1,000 impressions, you might be tracking cost per view. And then finally, you might want to track how much traffic is going to your website, at which point you'll be tracking click volume. And then you've also got the click-through rate metric as well. So looking at the percentage of people that saw your ad that went on to click. Typically, this would take you into more of a consideration stage, but it really depends on the content that you're promoting. So if you're promoting awareness-led content, so, you know, things around kind of guides and blog posts and things like that, they can be more kind of awareness-led rather than kind of consideration. So it depends on the content that you're promoting as well. So first and foremost, a really great place to start with brand awareness is the Google Display Network. So the Display Network is made up of hundreds of thousands of different websites, and this is across the globe. So, you know, you don't have to just think UK. If you wanted to go kind of international, Google Display has millions and millions of websites worldwide. And this is just a small network. So Google Display is kind of one network, but you can also look at kind of expanding into kind of other networks as well. So there's other platforms like Outbrain and Taboola, and these have a whole other host of kind of websites that you can reach as well. But one of the great things about display advertising is it can help you to reach a wide audience, and you can break that audience down. So you could go with audience targeting, so looking at people who have shown active intent, who have been looking for products and services like yours in the last 7 days. You could look at wider audiences, so affinity audiences, where users have shown a broad and a loose interest. So it might be that they've shown a loose interest in kind of sport, for example. So they're kind of more broad, they're more like the old kind of TV audiences. Or it could be that you target similar audiences. So these are the ones that are built on your first party data. And these are the ones that are showing similar traits, characteristics and behaviors to your existing customers. Or you can go after a contextual targeting. So if you want to essentially reach anybody who's viewing content around a certain topic, then contextual targeting is a great method in which to do this. And you can also layer the two together. So you can build an audience and then only target people that are also viewing content around specific topics. So there's two different means in which you can use Google Display, and both of which can drive kind of really, really great awareness. And then in Google as well, you've also got the possibility to run YouTube ads. So YouTube ads will run through the Google Ads interface, and it just helps. YouTube is a great way, and video is a great means in which to tell your brand story. It's more engaging and it's more visual than, you know, display advertising or banner advertising. And similar to the display, there's really great means in which you can target the audiences. So you can target based on channels and videos, so they're your contextual targets. So, you know, you could specifically put your advert on your competitor's channel, for example. So there's different kind of means and tactics that you could use there. And then on the same level as display advertising, you can target people who are showing kind of specific purchase and conversion intent, whether that be for something like business services or I'm trying to think what else comes up there. So it could be like law, it could be government. They've got kind of retail ones in there as well. So there's a lot of kind of intent audiences that are available. And then for YouTube, there's a couple of additional ones as well. So there are live events. So Google has categorized a handful of live events. I think it's about 9, I think it is. And they range from things like recently retired, recently purchased a house, recently had a baby. So things like that, or like recently graduated. So big events in people's lives. And you can target based on kind of these events. So, you know, if you're a furnishings company, somebody who's recently purchased a house might be the perfect person to raise brand awareness amongst. So there's different angles that you can go at with YouTube ads. And then the final one is detailed demographics. So detailed demographics are a way in which B2B audiences really can reach based on employment data really, and it looks at company size. So it's going down a little bit the road of kind of LinkedIn, but it's looking at things like company size and then company industry as well. It's by no means anywhere close to kind of the targeting that you can get on LinkedIn, but it is a good way and it is a good means if you do fall within kind of one of those target industries to reach a new prospective audience. YouTube also has various different ad types. So you've got the bumper ads, which run for 6 seconds. And these are really great for a short burst of kind of your brand. So you've got a very short space of time. So there's not enough time to kind of, tell a story or encourage users to purchase. It is all about kind of branding and kind of reinforcing your brand to this audience. You've also got in-stream and out-stream, and these are just kind of video-led content, typically around 30-second ads, but they can be shorter, they can be longer. And the great thing about in-stream is it is a very, very cost-effective means of brand awareness. So with skippable in-stream ads, you will only pay if a user watches 30 seconds of the ad, or if they click on the ad, or if the ad is shorter than 30 seconds, then you'll pay for the full view of the ad. And the reason it's very cost effective is because you get thousands and thousands of impressions, but until somebody hits that 30-second view, you haven't paid for those impressions. So they are free impressions. So if somebody skips the ad after that initial 5-second period, you don't pay for that. And that's why it makes it very, very cost effective. And in terms of kind of the cost per view, so with skippable in-stream, you pay cost per view. It works out usually between kind of 3 and 6 pence a view. So it is very, very cheap. And that's kind of one of the methods, if you've got video content, in which for a couple of £100, actually, you can get kind of a very big reach and a very big base in which to start building with your brand awareness. And then the final one for the ad types is ad sequence. So ad sequence is available in YouTube. It's also available in Facebook ads as well. And ad sequence essentially runs as a sequence. So you could submit, 2, 3, 4 videos. And these 3 or 4 videos, however many you submit, should all follow on from each other and should all tell a story. And the purpose of the ad sequence is the first video will be kind of very top level. It will be very broad. It will be planting the seed and kind of introducing your brand. And then as they go through the second, third and fourth video, what you're attempting to do is move this user through the funnel. So at the very last video that they see from your brand, you want to take them to the kind of point of conversion and getting them to the website. And the great thing about the ad sequencing is people will not see the second video or the third video or the fourth video until they've watched the video before that. So everybody will see kind of the full story and the full funnel. So it's a really great way to kind of move users through. But you do require that kind of story-led video content in which to do that. And then moving on, we've got Meta Ads, as it's now known, which covers Facebook and Instagram. It also covers the audience network and places like Messenger and Stories as well. In Facebook Meta Ads, the techniques in which you could use are based on the campaign objectives. So like I say, the platform has an objective for brand awareness, and this will focus on getting as much reach as possible for the budget that you set. But you can also use techniques around engagement objectives and website traffic if you want more kind of measurable and tangible data around kind of clicks and post engagement. Again, with this, it will depend on kind of the content that you're pushing with. So if you wanted to run brand awareness for kind of video views, then you're going to run a brand awareness campaign, because the metric there is going to be around kind of getting the reach and getting the video views for your video. Whereas if you're sharing content or kind of like, downloadable content, then actually website traffic is probably going to be what you want to focus on. So it all comes down to kind of what your initial targets are and what kind of content that you're promoting. In terms of audiences for Meta, you've got behavioral audiences, so things like how people are kind of spending online. So, if you're an e-commerce audience, it's things like using kind of Apple Pay and things like that. If you're looking for interest-based audience, these are really great because they look at kind of page likes, they look at broader kind of interests as well. So these are kind of great to kind of narrow in. They did recently get rid of some of kind of the more detailed interest targets. And the reason being was around kind of privacy, but there's still absolutely thousands and thousands of kind of interests. And some of the great ones are around, if you've got a particularly large competitor, for example, you can target audiences that have shown an interest in that competitor. So there's different ways in which you can look at kind of the interest targeting. And then again, we've got the lookalike, so targeting people based on your own data. And this is looking for people that share the same behavioral characteristics and intent as kind of those original customers of yours. Within Facebook as well, you've got the option to run a brand lift survey. So brand lift surveys are essentially a poll. So what will happen is Facebook will take your campaign, take your ads, and it will break the campaign into two audience sets. It'll have a test audience and a holdout group. And what will happen is Facebook will use polling and kind of other measurement techniques as well to help establish the value of Facebook ads. So this is kind of the poll that you can set up. And each group is polled and they're polled around kind of ad recall and kind of brand awareness. So they'll be asked, do you recall seeing an ad in this example, like in the last 2 days? And you can set what message and what questions you want to poll. But it's a really great way to kind of test, if you're delivering brand awareness ads, how much they're resonating and how much people are kind of paying attention. And are they thumb stopping ads? Are people recalling seeing these? And later in the slides, I've got an example of kind of what the results look like on that as well. And then the next approach really is thinking about not necessarily where you target, but what you're going to target with. And one of the best ways to build your brand is through developing great content, especially great free content. So, depending kind of what industry you're in, it really helps you to position yourself as a thought leader. So if you're sharing guides, if you're sharing, white papers, it could be kind of downloadable assets that subtly position your brand, and they can help you to kind of propel your brand into the forefront of potential customers. Because if you can solve and address pain points for these customers without, being salesy, it really puts your brand in kind of a great position. So on the right, this is an ad from Uswitch. So this is looking at kind of the cost of living. And if you click through onto this ad, it takes you to free content on, how different methods and different ways in which you can kind of, help yourself. So it's giving kind of free content. So it's setting themselves up as kind of this hub for where people can go for kind of information. And it's kind of giving that level of support. So it's about understanding, what are the pain points of your potential customers? Is there something that frequently crops up? Do you get some frequently asked questions? Can you build some content around that? And so it's about developing content that's valuable, content that is relevant to your brand, but not content that's there for kind of a sales push. It's more kind of a subtle approach to get users to your site and get them familiar with your brand. So when they think about this pain point and when they think about this issue that they've got, they think about how your brand can help them to solve it. When it comes to brand awareness, there's different ways in which you can bid, and this depends which platform that you are on. Predominantly for brand awareness, you're going to bid either cost per 1,000 impressions, which is CPM. So for this bidding method, what you do is you pay for every 1,000 impressions. In some scenarios, you can set a target, and this just helps to keep things on track and stop costs from escalating. The other core way, if you're using video content, is cost per view, so CPV. And this is where you pay per video view. With this, the different platforms class what a view is differently. So like I say, with Google, with the in-stream ads, a view is counted at 30 seconds. Whereas in Facebook, if you run a through play, that's counted as 15 seconds. So depending on which platform you're in, it depends when you're going to be charged. But the 30-second view in YouTube really does make it for kind of very cost effective on the brand awareness front. So they're different ones to consider. And then specifically within Google search, there's a bidding mechanism called target impression share. And this bidding is specifically enabled to help you to outbid your competition and to get your ads positioned at the top of the search results. Now, with target impression share, it's useful if you want to protect your brand's positioning for branded searches. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for generic terms because it can drop you into a bidding war. Because if you think about the mechanisms of the bidding strategy, essentially, if you were using this strategy and your competitor was using this strategy, you're just bidding against each other and you're both trying to achieve the same position, which just drives kind of the bids up. With the bidding though, you can set a maximum cost per bid limit. So you can set kind of the maximum you're willing to pay for any one click. With target impression share, you're probably going to have to be a little bit more generous with that maximum cost bid limit than you would in other campaigns or other bidding scenarios. Otherwise, there's not really any point in using it. But I would always set that limit, and it just means that the bids don't run away with themselves. They have got a cap and they can't go above that cap. But if you've got competitors being kind of aggressive and bidding on your brand, it is just a way that you can kind of try and claw back as much as possible that top position and that very first position in the ad space. And then finally, what we've got Google search. So search, when you think about Google search, it's not typically used for brand awareness methods. However, what I found and what kind of we continue to find is actually with the correct set of keywords, you can use it to your advantage. Particularly, for kind of generic keywords, the user is searching, but they're not specifying a brand. So actually, if they're not yet familiar with your brand, search also works as a means of brand awareness. So it does kind of tie in. But particularly what we find is for kind of exploration and question-based keywords where the user is starting that thought process of, do I need this? Or how do I do this? And what do I need to do for this? Those kind of exploration keywords can be really great. And actually for one of my own clients, I've seen the cost per acquisition on those keywords cheaper than some of the more targeted keywords that we've been using. So whilst the initial thought process is using this for brand awareness, if you can take those keywords and drop them on a page that's very educational, that answers all of their queries, answers all of their questions, actually within the same kind of step and in the same process, you can go from awareness through to consideration and conversion at the same point. There's some really great tools like Answer the Public. So with Answer the Public, you get, I think it's 3 free searches a day. And these will kick back lots of kind of question and preposition based keywords around kind of what, why, where, how. And this can help kind of build those questions based searches for your brand. So those are just some of the ways. Like I say, it's not extensive. There's other platforms. There's things like TikTok, there's Twitter, there's LinkedIn. There's a whole host of other kind of platforms. They all adopt kind of the same methodology though. So thinking about who you're going to target, what you want to measure, and then from that deciding, you know, what campaign objective and what campaign type am I going to use, and what content am I going to promote. And they all work, the social platforms, in a very similar way in terms of, you know, the interest, the demographic, the behavioural types of targeting. So when it comes to measuring the impact, there's some quantitative measurements that you can look at. So if you're using platforms, and hopefully you are in one form or another, such as Google Analytics, what you're able to do is keep an eye on the levels of direct traffic coming to your site. So if you run awareness-led activity and you see an uplift in your direct traffic, that is people, you know, directly coming to your brand. So you can track kind of the correlation between brand awareness and direct traffic increasing. The other method, and main method, would be monitoring brand search traffic. So whether you're running ads or not, there's tools that you can use. So Google Search Console, you can use this to filter down to just brand searches and watch the trend of that over time, and look for correlation between when you launch your awareness-led activity to what happens in your brand searches. Hopefully what you want to see is that you kick off your brand awareness activity, and you know, in that space of time, within you know a week or so, probably even a couple of days, you'd want to see an increase in that brand search activity. You can also use Google Keyword Planner. This helps as well to track your brand searches over time. So Keyword Planner tracks trends and month-on-month search volumes as well. So that's another one that you can use that is free to use. And then also what you want to be tracking is social media engagement rates and your follower counts. So follower accounts, you can keep a little kind of tracker on these, and just check, you know, if you're running, particularly if you're running an engagement-based activity on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, for example, you want to track that this activity is leading to an increase in followers, and that's just a way, again, of kind of building the brand. So with Search Console, this is kind of the view that you'll see. And like I say, if you put a filter on for the query, so this one is queried to Annika, you'll be able to track the impact on the number of brand impressions and clicks. You can set your date range, so it automatically defaults to the last 3 months, but you can go back as far as 16 months to kind of track the data over time. And the 16-month data will also show you that seasonality. So you'll be able to, you know, clearly define that it's not a seasonal impact. It is the fact that we've kind of launched brand awareness and we're seeing the impact of those ads being live. So that's one way to track it. Another way to track is setting up alerts for content mentioning your brand or your business. This is, I suppose, more impactful, you know, if you're running kind of outreach campaigns, if you're running kind of link building, if you're doing any kind of digital PR. But there's a couple of different ways in which you can track how the mentions of your brand. So one of the ways, and a free way in which to do it, is through Google Alerts. So you can set up a Google alert for any content that contains a specific keyword or phrase. So in this instance, what you do is you would track your brand name, and that would give you an alert each time your brand name is featured in a piece of content. And then there is premium tools as well. So we use a tool called Meltwater that it does the same purpose, but it just tracks kind of a little bit broader and a little bit wider, and it's got some additional parameters that you can add in. But essentially, it's all about tracking kind of the mentions of a brand name. And you can get alerts set up so you get links to the articles each time they come through. You want to be tracking on social media. So one of the methods on social media is monitoring for social mentions. So this is looking for anytime your brand is tagged, anytime your brand is mentioned, or anytime your brand campaign hashtag is used. This does require tools. So it will be tools like things like Sprout Social or Hootsuite or Brandwatch. And again, similar to the Google Alerts, you set up alerts for these mentions of your brand or the tagging of your brand, and you're able to see when you launch your awareness activity, how does this increase over time? Do you see a spike in the number of mentions of your brand? And then also, like I say, you want to be tracking the number of followers and also kind of likes and engagements to your page and to your posts. The recommendation for this, if you haven't got tools like Sprout Social, which kind of tracks this for you, you can keep, a manual tracker, in something like Sheets or Excel, and you can just plot this into a graph, and you'll be able to see how your follower counts are hopefully increasing over time once you've got that brand awareness activity. Coming back to Facebook. So looking at the Brand Lift survey results. So if you run a Brand Lift survey in Facebook, you can run it on a specific campaign, or you can run it kind of account wide for all campaigns. And then what you can do, you set kind of the period in which it runs, and then you can come back and you can check the impact of that Brand Lift campaign. So this one here is set up to track the impact on the control group versus the test group. And this is specifically tracking the impact on what the brand awareness activity had on the end result. So we're tracking purchases. So, was there a increase in the number of people converting after they saw one of our brand ads? So what the results showed us was there was a 77% chance that the Facebook ads that we delivered, so the awareness-based ads that we delivered, caused a lift for conversions. What Facebook does say is you want to aim for you want a result of 90% or more to be kind of sure. But any result, 77% chance is quite a substantial figure. So it does give you an indication that actually, they saw the ad and they are 77% more likely to convert. So it is, you can see kind of the uplift that it brings, and you can track kind of different metrics, and you can go back and you can check what the test details were. So that gives you kind of something to kind of review back on and kind of see, okay, people are seeing the ads and they're taking action from the ads as well. One of the main methods that we use in terms of building from brand awareness is using campaign remarketing. And this is all about moving users through that marketing funnel or the sales funnel. So when you run any brand awareness activity, whether it's for video views, whether it's for post engagement, page engagements, whether it's to get traffic to your website, within each of the platforms, there's a mechanism to build remarketing audiences for these users who are viewing, engaging, or clicking on your ad. So these audiences collate anybody who is taking one of these actions. And then what you can do is you can take these users who are part of your awareness activity and you can retarget to them. So what that means is you're going to directly advertise to users within who viewed, engaged, or clicked on your ad, and kind of the action that the user's taking when they click, when you build the audience list. And what you do with that is you actively advertise to these specific sets of users when they are either back in the platform again, so it could be another ad within Facebook, or it could be that you actively retarget to them when they're searching on Google. So if you run a YouTube video views campaign, if you build a remarketing audience from users who are viewing your video, what you can then do is you can use that audience list and you can target people actively searching on Google. And what that shows you is, particularly if they're searching on brand, what that shows you is users that watched your video are going away and they're searching for your brand. So that shows you that kind of the awareness activity is kind of working. So that's one way to track it. And you can also just use these audiences as observation in Google. So you can track what their future engagement is with your brand once they've been exposed to it. And just to kind of recap on the video views, so pretty much gone through most of this, but generally speaking, video view activity alone, even with a high view rate, it's good, it's great to see. But what you ultimately want to see is, does a user then go on to take an action? And like I say, video views remarketing lets you target users based on the videos that they've watched. And then whether you're on Facebook and delivering them another ad in Facebook, or like I say, if you're in Google search, it's easy to see that the users that are seeing these ads are then going on to take action on your website. Because ultimately, whilst awareness, that initial campaign is there to kind of build that awareness and plant the brand, ultimately the goal is to take them to the point of conversion. And then one of the other ways that you can look is using brand share of voice and search. So there's free tools like Keyword Planner, which, as I mentioned, can help you track the level of searches on your brand. Or there's premium tools that we use, such as SimilarWeb. And what you want to do is you want to pitch your brand searches against your competitors' brand searches. And you'll be able to see where brands and your own brand is gaining or losing share of search. And the purpose of this is to see, how is your brand increasing over time in comparison to your competitor's brand? Are you taking any kind of share of search? Are you taking any share of voice? Are you taking any share of market? So you can track it based on kind of brand searches. You can also build kind of trackers for kind of followers on social as well. Which will show you kind of how you're tracking and how you're pitching against your competitors. So in conclusion, in order to grow your brand, realistically, you're going to have to invest in brand awareness tactics. As we say, some of them are very, very cost effective. And if you use the right kind of measurement tactics, it just means that you're able to kind of circle back and close that funnel. And not only build kind of the awareness of your brand, but also build your pipeline and build your customer base as well. The crucial element is all about being able to determine and analyze the success of the activity on your brand. You don't want to be running brand awareness activity and either just assuming or not knowing whether it's having any impact. You want to be able to track that. And, there's free tools out there, like I say, like Search Console, Keyword Planner, even just, tracking your own follower accounts that are able to kind of show you things are kind of improving and things are moving in the direction. And when we enable brand awareness, things are kind of shooting up and we're seeing more brand searches. And that's the ultimate goal from the activity.
Brilliant. There's another tool that I think you can look at, which is topics.seo monitor, which sort of gives you easy access to keyword planner data. So if you put your own brand in, you sometimes will get some data, but if you haven't got a lot of recognition, you won't. But it's definitely worth looking. Yeah, that was really interesting, Holly. I mean, in a way, it's the main thing that you want to gain for, is to get so much brand recognition, because it's so much cheaper to be found for your brand than it is to be found for the product key phrases and things, which can be very, very expensive. So definitely a strategy that everybody needs to engage with. So just a few slides then. There's not really been very many questions, so I think you've been let off the hook. So and lots of really positive comments. So everybody's found it really useful. So what I'll do is I'm just going to bring up a few of the offers. So the first one is the early bird tickets for Leicester Digital. So Leicester Digital, it's our 7th year, and the early bird tickets are only £30, and it's at the 7th of June. We've got over 15 speakers, and there's some amazing people coming. We've got Boots coming, we've got Microsoft, we've got Yoast. I'm hoping SEMrush will come, and some, and as well as some individuals that are really good. So definitely go and have a look at that. We're flying a couple of people in as well. And there's 2 streams this time. You've got an innovation and inspiration stream, and then we've got a technical stream. So I think you'll find that really fascinating. And the £30 includes the hot lunch. So actually it's a subsidised price. The second one I wanted to share with you today was we're also running our next boot camp, which starts the week after on the 15th of June. We've already had over 100 people enroll, but we do know that we need a few more, because we know from the previous one that it's quite a big commitment and some people will drop out. But if you're based in the East Midlands, it's quite likely that it will be free for you. And the costs range between a completely free place if you're under 24, over 50, unemployed, from the BAME community, plus a few others. But it's only £300 if you're funding it individually. And if you're an employer who wants your staff to come, it's £750 plus VAT. I think there's one more that I wanted to share. Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to just mention, if you aren't all aware, is since Ed did his talk, Google announced the fact that GA4 is going to be the main type of analytics. So if you want to do the stuff that Holly was talking about, then you definitely need to update your Google Analytics to GA4, because the other one's going to be retired. And if you're interested, we are able to help you with that. And then finally, let's get some credit for Holly. We've got our Google reviews. So if you like what you saw today, please either give Holly a Google review, or we've got our normal reviews as well, which is this one. So I'll leave that one up so you can click through. So there's not a webinar next week. We're obviously getting ready for the conference. There's also the long back holiday. So the next time you'll see us is at the conference in Leicester on the 7th, which is the first thing that I brought up. I'll bring that up again. And then there'll be a program of webinars every week, again, as we go through the DMI course. We try and make sure we've got a program every week of webinars for you, and we'll start to announce that. For the people that live a bit too far away and can't make Leicester, we will be providing the videos afterwards in a couple of weeks' time as a sort of virtual conference. So, you know, if you can get there, the day is going to be amazing. There's lots of exhibitions, there's lots of things going on. But if you can't make it, we will try and let you catch up. So I guess the final thing is just the early bird tickets again. And I'd just like to thank Holly for stepping in and doing the webinar today. She's always got loads of great content. So thank you very much, Holly. And have a great weekend. Sorry, Holly, I interrupted you.
Oh, that's right. I just said thanks for joining.
Brilliant. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll send you all the information via video in a couple of hours. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.